Time and the unconscious mind operate like the water violently splitting the deep blue behind a moving ship. There is a violent churning energy beneath the surface that never quite settles. To the outside world, the 1950s looked like this: pristine suburbs and identical lawns, a nation determined to project a sense of perfect conformity. But the reality was far more jagged. The war hadn't ended for the soldiers returning to these homes. They brought a spiritual dislocation back with them, visible in the heavy, hollow exhaustion of the men who survived. Freddie Quell is the extreme result of this era. He is a Navy veteran ruled by raw, hypersexualized impulse, a man whose mind has been stripped down to its most basic animal instincts. He numbs his trauma with poison. He scavenges lethal military chemicals, distilling paint thinner and fuel from torpedoes to create a moonshine that burns away his ability to think.
Freddie isn't just a broken sailor. He is the proof that a society can unleash massive violence, but doesn't always know how to domesticate the men who carried it out. By the 1950s, the traditional American structures were failing. People were starving for a new kind of master, someone who could explain the horrors they'd seen and offer a cure for the human condition. Lancaster Dodd fills that void. He leads a movement called The Cause, a philosophical system that promises its followers they can transcend their own biology and achieve perfection. Dodd presents himself as the structured intellectual ego. He offers the language and order that Freddie lacks, promising a world governed by logic and past life memories instead of animal rage. Dodd sees Freddie as the perfect subject. He claims his techniques can take this raw, unprocessed spirit and tame it, proving that his science is powerful enough to fix anyone. This is the central tension of their bond. A man who cannot be controlled has been locked inside a movement designed to control everything. Freddie and Dodd share a parasitic bond. They trade validation for submission, using one another to fill specific voids in their own psyches that no cure can actually reach. Dodd is haunted by his own fraudulence. He needs a subject as volatile as Freddie to stay under his thumb. If he can tame the untamable, then he can convince himself that his methods are real. Freddie, meanwhile, is looking for a commander. He needs a father figure to build a cage for his rage, hoping that Dodd's rigid structures will finally stop him from self-destructing. They pursue control through processing, forcing the subject to pace between a window and a wall. The window promises a way out, then the wall. This rigid boundary mirrors the mental barriers Freddie cannot break through, forcing him back inward. This is collaborative theater. Dodd attempts to overwrite Freddie's real physical trauma with a fictitious narrative of past lives, using language to build a new history over the old one. But Dodd has become a prisoner of his own charisma. He lives inside the myth he created, functioning as the movement's public face, while the actual levers of control move through a different channel. That channel is Peggy Dodd. She is the quiet, ruthless, ideological enforcer who provides the steel behind her husband's warmth. While her husband is fascinated by Freddie's animal nature, Peggy sees it as a liability. She realizes that Freddie cannot be corrected and must be cast out to keep the collective movement pure. The cult's survival depends on excising the very instincts it claims to heal. It exposes the entire operation as a fragile linguistic trick, one that cannot survive the presence of a truly free animal. The final test of this ideology happens out on the salt flats, a space so vast that no wall can possibly contain a man. Dodd rides a motorcycle in a perfectly straight, controlled line, a performance of mastery. But when Freddie takes the bike, he simply accelerates into the horizon, riding away until he disappears. It is the moment the cause fails. An ideology can give a man a vehicle, but it cannot dictate where he goes once he feels the throttle in his hand. Yet the film ends with a rhyme. Freddie returns to a beach, once again sculpting a woman out of the sand. He uses the very words Dodd used to process him, but he's using them to seduce a woman. He hasn't been cured. He has just learned to weaponize the master's language to better serve his own animal instincts. We are left with Dodd's final challenge, that if a man ever finds a way to live without a master, he will be the first in the history of the world. Freddie's journey suggests that true mastery over the self is an impossible goal. He didn't find freedom. He just found a way to make his instincts look like a choice. In the end, we don't outrun our nature. We just look for a master who makes the weight of the leash easier to carry.